we did a solar class. We kind of shot off the hip on some of it. It turned out decent. Bubby didn't stay in the frame and get himself in the video too awful much. He had never done a video before. A lot of this was just shot off the hip for what we were doing. We did some stuff outside the shop that I ran. My batteries died on the camera, so we couldn't get all this. It's not super good audio and super good video, but I wanted to put it out there anyway, just for everybody can watch it. There's some good nuggets of info in there. So watch it. It's raw, unedited. There's some goofing around and joking and stuff like that in there, but it won't hurt anything. So I hope you like it, just the raw, unedited stuff. Thanks.
What you're going to do is add your voltage. You're going to get a higher voltage. So an example of that, if you've got two 12-volt batteries, Kristen, 2 times 12 is, or 12 plus 12, is that easier?
Listen, I majored in social work, so there's no math.
So what I'm saying, if you wire your batteries in series, this is an example, you got 2 batteries that are 12 volts. Wire those in series, and it comes out to 24 volts. So an example of that, 2 12-volt, 100 amp hour batteries, you wind up with 24 volts and 100 amp hours. So you doubled your voltage, but kept your amp hours the same. Is that simple? All right. Parallel adds amp hour capacity. It keeps the voltage the same, but it doubles your amp hours, is what it'll do. So an example of that, if you've got 2 12-volt batteries in parallel, you have 12 volts times amp hours. So an example of that, 2 12-volt batteries, 2 12-volt 100 amp hour batteries, you've got 12 volts and 200 amp hours. But essentially, and we'll get into that in a minute with your watt hours, you've got the same thing if you compare it to watt hours. And that's what I was saying, you need a way to do apples to apples. So, Chuck, you got a question about wiring?
Yeah, when can you come and do the house?
But, and then one of the big advantages, the higher the voltage you go, the more efficient everything is. So, plus the smaller the cables that you have to run. I mean, if you're running a 12-volt system and running like 200 amp hours, your cables are going to be huge. But as you step up to like a 48-volt system, then you're not running the amps as high in amperage, so you can get by with a smaller cable. So doing the higher voltage systems, instead of running like freaking, 1-aught cable and stuff like that, you step down to like an 8-gauge cable. Everybody's seen like the big battery cables on the vehicle. That, when you're running real high amperage, you've got to have cables like that, as opposed to like an 8-gauge cable. That's an 8-gauge cable compared to your battery cables on your car.
Ours are 6.
Are they? What are you're running what, a 48 volt?
Yeah, 48 volts.
So, and then we'll figure watt hours. Watt hours is pretty easy. I put the formula up here. It's kind of complicated, but not really. Essentially, it's volts times amps equal your watts. So an example of that, if you've got a 12-volt battery that's 100 amps, you multiply 12 times 100, you get 1,200 watt hours. If you got a 48 volt, like say you got a 48 volt system with, or if you just got a plain, they make 48 volt batteries. So if you got a 48 volt battery that's 100 amp hour, you'll wind up 4,800 watt hours. Did anybody get lost in the weeds on that?
Clear as mud. I'm getting mad at one guy. I said, here, I need to take a walk or something. Because I just don't understand.
It's over my head too.
Bubby, you got anything to add on
I'm
that?
trying to figure out how to explain it in layman terms.
That's what,
The more power, the more voltage, the less amperage.
Like, if you did that 2
Your
volts
volts and your
and
watts are potentially the same. It's the power that
It's
it
the
takes
power,
to make
yeah.
something work. Your amps is,
Your amps will go down if the voltage goes up.
right.
Yeah.
Your amps is the potential to how much it can draw.
Mhm.
Um, Basically, when you're doing the volts and the watts, from what I've gathered, they're the same thing pretty much. You have to have this many watts to run something, and like if you plug in the refrigerator, you gotta have 110 volts or it won't work. Same thing on 12 volt, 24 volt. It takes so much stuff so much of a voltage to make it work. The wattage is its potential that it's going to use.
But it will use less wattage, less amperage with the more voltage. I deal with 480.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I deal with 480. My 480 motors run 3 amps
Yeah.
at 480 volts.
Right.
Or if I run them at 208 volts,
Double
they
your
draw
amperage.
double,
Yeah,
if not more.
Essentially, it's just balancing it out, right?
yeah.
So
I mean,
you're
if you
better on
go-
a system that you can run 48 volts. The system's gonna run a whole lot better.
Yeah, it's more efficient,
More efficient, a lot more efficient.
so, then,
More than 12 volts.
Oh, a lot more, a lot better than 12 volts.
Not anything else, like if you're just focusing on the volts and the watt hours that you're using, like,
the higher the voltage you've got, the more efficient your system is.
Yeah.
From everything that I understand and I've read about it.
so you don't need to worry about the amps at all.
No, you still need to worry about it, especially with batteries, yeah.
Certain things
But-
don't work without the
Yeah.
amps.
If you look at the calculation there, volts times amps equals watts. If you put higher volts on the left versus your amps on the right, you've gotta get a certain number of watts. So if you've got a 10 volt, to simplify, let's say we've gotta get 100 watts on the right, okay? We're gonna run 10 volts times 10 amps equals 100 watts, right? But we can still do 20 volts times 5 amps, will still give you 100 watts. That's the
So
difference.
the appliance, is that where you get the amperage from? Is the individual appliance, you can use different amps?
Yeah, each appliance will have essentially how many watts,
Yeah.
like if you've got a, let's say you've got a 1200 watt, appliance, and it's 120 volts, household current 120 volts, and it's a 1200 watt appliance, then it's going to draw 10 amps. Because I did, 120
They started
volts
throwing watt hours out there.
and 1200
To
watts.
make it more complicated than what it actually is.
Okay.
So when you divide those, you wind up with 10 amps.
Simplified, if I just drop it.
Yeah.
So in a perfect world, you want a series, so you have the higher voltage.
And also,
It-
Yeah, if
Is
you
there
were
a
to
perfect
get,
world?
if you were to get 48 volt batteries
Sounds about right.
and wire them, yeah.
Right. You have like the
But
lower
then you
amp
run-
hours,
But that's what I'm saying,
so you have the higher voltage.
You have the higher voltage, but you want more amp hours.
not much.
So you want to have a medium. You want to balance it out, I guess.
It all kind of depends on what you want,
You
on
know what you're
the,
gonna spend.
yeah, on the bigger systems, some of the bigger systems are running 96 volts. They're doubling the 48 volts. And what you're winding up with is less amperage.
Right.
So with the less amperage, then you're using smaller wires.
Yeah.
Every time you raise your amperage, your wire size can go down.
Right.
If not, if you're just running like a 12 volt system, one of these, you've seen the big massive solar places. If they're running just a 12 volt system, for all that, they're gonna have to have freaking
Yeah,
arm-sized
race
cables that are
Right.
running 500 feet, and you're like, crap, I've spent $10,000 on cable for that.
Yeah.
So if you keep raising your voltage, your cable size goes down, so your installation cost is gonna go down. I was trying to figure out how to explain the watt hours a little bit better.
it's
Kristen,
newish to me. It's newish to me because I go by amp hours and everything. But I stay on 12 volt system, but I'm not running 600 feet of wire.
And
Wouldn't a watt hour, and just tell me, if you're pushing, let's say, 100 watts, with whatever system that you develop, and you have a 75 watt, regular light bulb, 75 watts, would it last for X amount of time? Is that how you can do watt hours?
we'll have to,
Well, that's what he did up there with the
like your,
those LEDs. The,
Right.
Yeah, like the
120
LED.
Regular light works the same.
if you're running, if you're running 100
Well, if we use your example here, the 9 watts with the 5 light bulbs in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm running 3.75 amps.
Yeah, those lights in there
Will last for how many hours?
are running, you're pulling 3.75 amps per hour off that. It's a 135 amp hour battery. It will last at 50%, it will last 18 hours.
Okay.
And-
You don't wanna go under that.
Yeah, you don't wanna run it really under 50%. But you see the way I figured it, Chuck?
I do.
That's a 135 amp hour battery in there. Divide it by 2, and then that will give you, once you divide it by 2, then you figure out how many amps you've got and then do that, and that'll give you your hours to run.
I just wanna know.
I got that one. The
Did
light,
you?
oh, the light one I've got.
I just wanna know how long I can operate that light bulb, that TV, or that whatever system I might
Yeah.
be turning
I'm
on.
just gonna total my, the watts, the
And
Ours is set up. They all pretty same. Every design, but you also don't need to they show you separate.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but our inverter.
Right, if we're using inverters, then our lights, almost the stuff is running DC. So you don't get that, you just gotta monitor. Right across the street. The trick to me, is with anything that you're gonna run, you have to know.
what you'll do is add your voltage. You're gonna get a higher voltage. So an example of that, if you've got 2 12-volt batteries, Kristen, 2 times 12 is, or 12 plus 12, is that easier?
Listen, I majored in social work, so there's no math.
So, what I'm saying, if you wire your batteries in series, just an example, you got 2 batteries that are 12 volts. Wire those in series, and it comes out to 24 volts. So, an example of that, 2 12-volt, 100 amp hour batteries, you wind up with 24 volts and 100 amp hours. So you doubled your voltage, but kept your amp hours the same. Is that simple? All right. Parallel adds amp hour capacity. It keeps the voltage the same, but it doubles your amp hours, is what it'll do. So an example of that, if you've got 2 12-volt batteries in parallel, you have 12 volts times amp hours. So an example of that, 2 12-volt battery, 2 12-volt 100 amp hour batteries, you've got 12 volts and 200 amp hours. But essentially, and we'll get into that in a minute with your watt hours, you've got the same thing if you compare it to watt hours. And that's what I was saying, you need a way to do apples to apples. So, Chuck, you got a question about wiring?
Yeah, when can you come and do this? The house.
But, and then one of the big advantages, the higher the voltage you go, the more efficient everything is. So, plus the smaller the cables that you have to run. I mean, if you're running a 12-volt system and running like 200 amp hours, your cables are gonna be huge. But as you step up to like a 48-volt system, then you're not running the amps as high in amperage, so you can get by with a smaller cable. So, doing the higher voltage systems, instead of running like freaking, 1-aught cable and stuff like that, you step down to like an 8-gauge cable. Everybody's seen like the big battery cables on the vehicle. That, when you're running real high amperage, you've gotta have cables like that, as opposed to like an 8-gauge cable. That's an 8-gauge cable compared to your battery cables on your car.
Ours is 6.
Are they? What are you're running, what, a 48 volt?
Yeah, 48 volt.
So, and then we'll figure watt hours. Watt hours is pretty easy. I put the formula up here. It's kind of complicated, but not really. Essentially, it's volts times amps equal your watts. So an example of that, if you've got a 12-volt battery that's 100 amps, you multiply 12 times 100, you get 1,200 watt hours. if you got a 48 volt, like say you got a 48 volt system with, you know, or if you just got a plain, they make 48 volt batteries. So if you got a 48 volt battery that's 100 amp hour, you wind up 4,800 watt hours. Is that, did anybody get lost in the weeds on that?
Clear as mud.
Go figure. That's what we got.
I'm getting mad at one grass out here, I need to take a walk or something. Cause I just don't understand.
It's over my head too.
Bubby, you got anything to add on
I'm
the,
trying to figure out how to explain it in layman terms. but-
that's what,
I
The more
vote for that.
power, the more voltage, the less amperage.
Like, if you did that
Your
2 volts,
volts and your
and-
watts are potentially the same. It's the power that it
It's the
takes to
power,
make
yeah.
something work. Your amps is,
Your amps will go down if the voltage goes up.
right.
Yeah.
Your amps is the potential to how much it can draw. Um, Basically, when you're doing the volts and the watts, from what I've gathered, they're the same thing pretty much. You have to have this many watts to run something, and like if you plug in a refrigerator, you gotta have 110 volts or it won't work. Same thing on 12 volt, 24 volt. It takes so much stuff to, so much of a voltage to make it work. The wattage is its potential that it's going to use.
But it will use less wattage, less amperage with the more voltage. I deal with 480.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I deal with 480. My 480 motors run 3 amps
yeah.
at 480 volts.
Right.
Or if I run them at 208 volts,
Double
they
your
draw
amperage.
double,
Power.
Yeah,
if not more.
yeah, yeah.
So you're
if you
better on
go-
a system that you can run 48 volts. The system's gonna run a whole lot better.
Yeah, it's more efficient,
More efficient, a lot more efficient.
so, then,
More than 12 volts.
Oh, a lot more, a lot better than 12 volts.
Not anything else, like if you're just focusing on the volt and the watt hours that you're using, like,
the higher the voltage you've got, the more efficient your system is.
Yeah.
From everything that I understand and I've read about it.
so you don't need to worry about the amps at all.
No, you still need to worry about it, especially with batteries, yeah.
Certain things
But-
don't work without the amps.
Yeah.
If you look at the calculation there, volt times amp equals watts. If you put higher volts on the left versus your amps on the right, you've gotta get a certain number of watts. So if you've got a 10 volt, to simplify, let's say we've gotta get 100 watts on the right, okay? We're gonna run 10 volts times 10 amps equals 100 watts, right? But we can still do 20 volts times 5 amps, will still give you 100 watts. That's the
So
difference.
the appliance, is that where you get the amperage from, the individual appliance, you can use different amps?
Yeah, each appliance will have essentially how many watts,
Yeah.
like if you've got a, let's say you've got a 1200 watt, appliance, and it's 120 volts, household current 120 volts, and it's a 1200 watt appliance, then it's going to draw 10 amps. Because I did, 120
They started
volts
throwing watt hours out there.
and 1200
To
watts.
make it more complicated than what it actually is.
Okay.
So when you divide those, you wind up with 10 amps.
Simplified, so you just drop it.
Yeah.
So in a perfect world, you want a series,
It's your capacity
so you have the
per
higher
point,
voltage.
And also.
It-
Yeah, if
Is
you
there
were
a
to
perfect
get,
world?
if you were to get 48 volt batteries
Sounds about right.
and wire, yeah,
Right. You have the
Then
lower
you
amp
run-
hours,
But that's what I'm saying,
so you have the higher voltage.
you have the higher voltage, but you want more amp hours.
Not much.
So you want to have a medium. No doubt, not okay.
It all kind of depends on what you want,
You know what you're
on
gonna spend.
yeah, on the bigger systems, some of the bigger systems are running 96 volts. They're doubling the 48 volts. And what you're winding up with is less amperage.
Right.
So with the less amperage, then you're using smaller wires.
Yeah.
Every time you raise your amperage, your wire size can go down.
Right.
If not, if you're just running like a 12 volt system, one of these, you've seen the big massive solar places. If they're running just a 12 volt system, for all that, they're gonna have freaking arm
Yeah,
size
replace.
cables that are
Right.
running 500 feet, and you're like, crap, I've spent $10,000 on cable for that.
Yeah.
So if you keep raising your voltage, your cable size goes down, so your installation cost is gonna go down. I was trying to figure out how to explain the watt hours a little bit better.
It's
Kristen,
newish to me. It's newish to me because I go by amp hours and everything. But I stay on 12-volt system, but I'm not running 600 feet of wire.
And it,
Wouldn't a watt hour, and just tell me, if you're pushing, let's say, 100 watts, with whatever system that you develop, and you have a 75 watt, regular light bulb, 75 watts, would it last for X amount of time? Is that how you can do watt hours?
we'll have to,
Well, that's what he did up there with the
yeah, like your,
those LEDs. The
Right.
Yeah, like the
120
LED.
regular light works the same.
if you're running, I mean, if you're running 100,
Well, if we use your example here, the 9 watts with the 5 light bulbs in there.
yeah,
Okay, so I'm running 3.75 amps.
yeah, those lights in there
Will last for how many hours?
are running, you're pulling 3.75 amps per hour off that. It's a 135 amp hour battery. It will last at 50%, it will last 18 hours.
Okay.
If you go one guy's to the other, you don't wanna go under that.
Yeah, you don't wanna run it really under 50%. But you see the way I figured it, Chuck?
I did.
That's a 135 amp hour battery in there. Divide it by 2, and then that will give you, once you divide it by 2, then you figure out how many amps you've got and then do that, and that'll give you your hours to run.
I just wanna know.
I got that one. The
Did
light,
you?
oh, the light one I've got.
I just wanna know how long I can operate that light bulb, that TV, or that whatever system I might be
Yeah.
turning
I'm
on.
just gonna total my watts per part of my amp.
And
Ours is set up. They all pretty simple. Every design you do, but you also run, they show you except
Well, that's what I'm saying, but our inverter.
right, if we're using inverters, then our lights, all most of the stuff is running DC. So you don't get that. You just gotta monitor it. The trick to me, is with anything that you're gonna run, you have to know what you're running when it's being used. And like when we lost our power, it was running that, everybody's different. They try to sell big systems, that's my fault. They try to sell everybody the same systems. And we're all different and our needs are all different. So you have to actually build the system around you. What works for me might not work for you. Trying to get to this question on that, you have to, you start learning, you have to shut those lights off. You have to, if you're gonna use anything else, how far am I gonna bring this down? Because you're gonna have to add it into, calculate it into your systems so that you don't run it down. I don't know if that answers what Chuck is asking. Because it just depends on the device that you're running or that you're going to add to it. We're so accustomed to just plugging stuff in and going. And that's where you get the problem.
It's like being in the kitchen with all of your appliances running, like your crock pot, your instant pot, your coffee pot, everything all running at once. You're gonna trip this stuff, so you actually, you know, you have to kind of play the game.
You either trip it or you'll suck those batteries dry really quick.
Right, or you'll drain, yeah, so you have to kind of play the game, so who's gonna be low and more on it.
Can't run a microwave at the same time you're running the coffee pot.
Right.
I mean, with your watt hours, the watt hours, like I said, it's how you compare apples to apples. Because if you've got, let's say we've got a 12-volt system here, that's running 1200 watt hours, we can also have a 24-volt system with 50 amps. And you wind up to 1200 watt hours. So that's one way, I mean, if you went up to the 24 volt system, so that's one way to figure it out. And then going back, like the 120 volt, if you got a 120 volt appliance and it's pulling 1200 watts, essentially you've got 10 amps is what that is the amount that's going to be taken out of there. So essentially when you're running it, if you run it off the battery, you'll have to run it through an inverter to get your 120 volts. You're going to lose a little bit through your inverter just because you're converting. You're drawing 10 amps out of your battery on that. So
What is a 12 volt system versus a 48? What makes them?
it's the way you wire your batteries.
So one battery is 12, two batteries, or four batteries?
You ain't even got a read, it's got pictures.
Okay,
Right, page 3.
page 3.
Well, if you take four 12 volt batteries and wire them in, you're wiring them in series, you just add 12, 12, 12, and then you got 48 volts.
Okay.
But you can also buy a 48 volt battery. Most of those are gonna be just lithium batteries,
Right.
but then you're getting into big money. What, those ones that Kyle was saying were like $1,500 or something.
Yeah. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, hell, you can buy 15 of those batteries that we got out there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in my opinion, what was that? Was it like 100? How big a battery is that? Do you remember?
It wasn't very big, 150.
I think it was like 200 amp hour battery or something. So, I mean, he got a 48 volt, 200 amp hour battery and it was like $1,500. I mean, with
A lot of
those,
money.
yeah, I mean, I could buy 15 of those batteries we got sitting out there.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you've got 15 of those batteries, and they're each 100 amp hour, so you got 1,500 amp hour on that. So you got 1,500 amp hour, you split that in two, you still got 750 amp hours that you can use on that. And that's just drawing them down. 750 amp hours is a lot of reserve that you can use for stuff.
The nice part about that too, one battery goes dead or does not charge, not a big deal.
Yeah.
You go down and get it. If that one battery fails, you're SOL.
Yeah, I mean, just think, if I had 750 amps sitting in that little room, I'm drawing 3.75 an hour. Just think how long those stinking lights can stay on before I'm at 50%.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've spent the same money, I mean, he wouldn't be able to do the same thing. The nice thing about the lithiums is you can draw them down to what, 20%? 20%, and, which is nice and all, but personally, for me, I don't think they're worth the money. Do it with, Mike, you got
That, I
it.
think
I got mine set at 30% because it's supposed to last like, 20% is supposed to drop them down to 3,000.
3,000 charges.
3,000 charges, and it says if you do 30, it's 5,000 charges.
Yeah.
So I don't take them all the way down to 20, because I always want to get as long as I can.
Oh, yeah, I don't blame you.
Now, what about the temperature versus, lithium versus, let's say, deep cell marine batteries or golf cart batteries?
Bubba, you
Under
know
a certain
about
level or temperature,
Yeah, the
the
lithium,
lithiums don't charge?
they don't charge as much. They lose their efficiency the colder it gets and the hotter it gets.
That's why we got
You
our-
get down to freezing and you lose, I think it's down to 20%, they pretty much shut themselves off.
And that's what I read with the lithium, because we've all seen those commercials on TV for Generac, the solar systems. And they have those big battery packs that are hung on a wall, let's say in a garage. And I read some customer reviews that people were pissed off that they spent $40,000 on this Generac system, and it was in Virginia, and the batteries weren't charging because it was February in Virginia.
And with the deep cycles, you just got a big ass car battery. Which cold does get it, but it's usually below 10, below 5. And if you have your solar out of the weather, you'll never have that problem. Well, I'm not saying you never.
Because my batteries, the way I'm gonna hook things up, first I'm gonna start small with my outbuildings, so those batteries are gonna be outside. And, you know, they'll be dry, they'll be in the hen house and the goat shed. So that's where I'm trying to think, would, you know,
You can put them in a cooler. It
I
helps
was gonna
keep,
say,
it
make
helps
sure
to
you
keep
put them
them
where
cool or
some,
warm.
they do release a gas
Yeah.
if they're indoors.
right.
That's the only thing about
I wouldn't put them in the hen house.
that's something about, the good thing about lithium, they don't let off that gas, so they can't be inside.
Right.
I
Well, the hen
wouldn't-
house isn't totally enclosed, one wall, just fencing.
Oh, well, then
So
it'd
it'd
probably be
be-
okay.
yeah.
You need places that
Ventilation.
air circulate, yeah, ventilation.
Or you
Okay.
put them in a cooler and run a vacuum tube hole through it to let the gas out. Cause they have gas hookups on the batteries.
Okay.
And it's a hydrogen gas. I've read some stuff on it, and they say that hydrogen gas escapes so fast. It's not like gas fumes, how gas fumes just stay on the ground.
Right.
Yeah, it's super light, and they're like, one guy was saying, it's like you can't even measure how fast that stuff goes. It's not like it lingers around. I
Okay.
mean,
Unless it's enclosed.
Wait, so
Yeah,
that's
if it's
hydrogen.
trapped in a little
Right,
box
if
or a
it's
cooler or
trapped in a
something,
room.
but as long as you got any kind of ventilation, it'll be.
I'm gonna put a lead acid battery bank in my basement, and I'm not super concerned about the hydrogen building up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if the house blows up one day.
Well, your house vents anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, if you do that, you can put some kind of a vent going to the outside too, from the battery box.
yeah.
Better yet, figure out how to reclaim it.
I'm just not that super worried about it.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
It's not,
fuck it, if
to
it
me,
happens,
it's
it
not,
happens.
it's not
I
that
mean,
big of a deal either.
You'd have to
It's not
be
that
pretty,
big a deal.
pretty airproof, right, for it to even get trapped to begin with.
Yeah,
It's
you,
gonna just take,
like I was suggesting, putting
Yeah,
it, if it's
just a
outside,
tube,
put it in the
right.
cooler, but just drill a hole in it
Yep.
and run tubing out, and then you won't have the gas build up in the cooler.
yeah.
And it,
yeah.
it vents so fast, like you were saying, you
Yeah.
won't even notice, you can't smell it. Now, y'all all probably jump the battery on the car and you smell that smell,
Mhm.
that is the gas, the hydrogen gas from the battery.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff I've done here that people are like, well, you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, okay, thanks for your input. I'm gonna do it anyway. So nothing, I hadn't killed myself yet.
OSHA don't live here.
Huh?
OSHA don't live
Yeah,
here.
there's no ocean. So, what, Kristen, you still confused over there? Okay. Y'all wanna do
That's
any more
confused.
questions? Chuck, like that little Harbor Freight deal
Right.
would run your freaking chicken coop and goat shed. I
No
mean,
problem.
Yeah, and I don't think there is gonna be any problems with that. It's
I was gonna
it's
say
actually
LED bulbs, it should be
Yeah.
a.
and it
pretty
comes with,
no-brainer.
it comes with 2 LED bulbs already. I mean, essentially you can take that kit, we could screw that thing in, set it up, and you'd have 2 LED bulbs to light that shed. And that and then
And
go
your
buy-
battery is, your charge controller will keep it in float most of the time.
And go buy, you seen those cheap battery boxes they got at like a TSC, the plastic battery boxes?
Mhm.
Stick the stinking battery in that thing. I'd build a little shelf or something where they couldn't get to it.
Right.
Stick it up there and man, you're golden.
I think, you know, that setup, I'm pretty confident that it's gonna be simple there. And once I get more familiar with the outbuildings, the power that, you know, what I'm drawing from it
What you need to
and
run out.
producing for it, then taking that next step for one room in the house. Kinda like yourself there, Bob. You know, one room at a time type thing,
That's what I would suggest.
yeah.
What do you think about those 6-volt, golf cart batteries? Some of them have like.
I'd love to have some.
Some of them about
Because
300,
they got
like
6
300 amp hours, ain't they, something like that?
Some of them get up 6 and 800 amp.
Cause you got 2 of those in a series making 12 volts, and you got some pretty good.
Yeah, you would have 1,200, 1,500.
See, and that's
Depending on the
what's
size
in,
of the
when I
battery.
replaced the they were golf cart batteries basically in the RV. And I think they were 150 a piece, they were kind of pricey, you know, and they were super heavy, but they're taller. I never knew what the difference was between deep cell marine battery and a golf cart battery, just, you know, the tallness of it.
The heavy comes from the plates, and that's there to design for the amp draw, because you get the heavy draw from the motors. That's where your amps come in a lot. You gotta have the amps to kick motors in and make them move.
I read something the other day, it was talking about what's the difference between deep cell marine batteries and golf cart batteries. And they said the deep cell marine batteries were built sturdier because when you're in a boat, you're gonna be pounding and, you know, driving in the lake. or-
You don't want a connection to have
Right,
disconnection.
so they're built sturdier versus a golf cart battery, usually it's pretty smooth. So that's one of the differences between just the construction of those two batteries.
They're heavy as golf
Yeah.
carts, they're built good.
And
Big
one
plates.
of my big things about the lead acid batteries going with those is just because I'm looking at it as a grid down situation. Grid's down, I
There it
can't
is.
call Ridigen or whoever and be like, hey, I need 2 more lithium batteries for my place because one of them went out. There's lead acid batteries freaking everywhere. The neighbor 4 or 5 doors down has got a bass boat. Man, you know, if he's gone and bugged out somewhere, his bass boat's sitting there, dude, you got a whole bass boat that you got deep cycle marine batteries.
Right.
If you design your system just for lithium stuff, then you're gonna have to redo some stuff on it, essentially, as opposed to lead acid batteries. Shit, everybody that drove out here's got lead acid batteries. We could pull everybody's battery and have a little system going.
Yeah.
And be charging it, pull those solar panels off. They're not marine batteries, so they're not gonna last and have the capacity. They're starting batteries, so they don't have that built-in capacity. Man, we could throw together some kind of solar system to power some radios or power a small dorm refrigerator to keep, you know, Josh's insulin going, you know, to keep it cold, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So you're looking at it that way. I look at it grid down, no resupply, what can I do?
And that's what I'm trying to do also, you know.
On
start
this
off small.
page, it has a calculation of, how you can take just a car battery or deep cycle marine and calculate your, amperes. So it actually, there is a conversion for it, so you can take
From the
a
cold cranking
600
amps?
cold cranking amp car battery and you're still gonna produce
Right.
quite a bit of amperes out of it. So it ain't just the marines, you can still take them out hard or whatever.
Thank you, who did the handouts? Who made all the copies and stuff?
I sent it all to Bubby and he printed it
Yeah,
out.
I printed it for him.
Thank you for that. No, I have to say thank you for that because it gives me something to look at.
No, Bubby did all that himself.
No, that was good, thank you.
Now, when he was, I'm getting off the batteries for a second to go back where he was at. On the volts, volt versus the amps on 24 12-volt systems, there's a chart in there of the gauges that you use. And there's also, the reason that they, on the big rays, you use the 24 48 volts is the distance. You get a voltage drop, and that's in there, the distance of what gauge wires and how much of a voltage drop you get across those wires. I don't have either of these problems, as you know, well, and he knows. My system's right there together at each room where I have it. So I'm only running 5 feet of wire from my panels to my batteries.
I think ours is like 85 feet.
Yeah, you have to have that or you're gonna get,
How far is yours there? Mike?
85 feet.
yeah, you'll get a large drop off of it. If you look here on the chart at 4, at 72, you lose 4 amps just traveling.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
What's that
10
wire?
feet.
What's
Yeah,
that?
that's if you're just running on 12-volt system.
Yeah.
That's actually why, history, Edison and, Tesla,
Mhm.
he made everything, designed it on DC. And Edison stole it and then went with AC. But the
Right.
reason that they did it is because the voltage drop across DC, that's why your power wires run on AC, because you can move the electric across AC currents because it's spinning.
Right.
Once it hits your transformer and comes into your house, it's still on AC, but almost all your components in your house are still on DC system. They step down your TV and convert it into DC. It runs off of DC. Almost everything you can take it apart and you see it's got a converter, AC to DC converter,
Right.
and drops the voltage down.
Yeah, just like your laptop.
You'll have a,
Your laptop charger, you know, the little box that you got on your laptop charger,
Yeah.
that's a transformer that steps that from 120 volts down to like 19, I think it's 19.2 or something like that voltage to charge the battery in your laptop. So your laptop's not really running on 120 volts, it's running on 19.2 that's charging the
It
battery.
steps it down and transfers everything, it converts it to DC, almost everything in your house, unless it's a heating element or a big motor.
Right.
They're usually they got something that steps them down and converts it to DC.
And just like your power lines, like the power line running in to there, I don't know how many volts that is on that power line, but it's way more than 120 volts or 240 that's running to the house. If it's taking 7,000 volts in there, the 7,000 volts on the round transformer, it's stepping it down to 240 that comes into the house. So, and that's the reason that they can run power so far. The higher the voltage that you're running, the smaller the wire. So those big monster power lines, I'm not an electrician, I don't know how
All
many.
those 150, 200,000 volts probably.
Yeah, so that's the way that they can run the smaller wire. If they're only running 120 volt wire, or 120 volts, that wire would be that big around just to run a mile or something. It's crazy, and that's where it goes back to having a higher voltage in your system to get by with a smaller wire. Chaz, tell us, you know about this, don't
No.
you? Are you an electrician?
A little idea.
Why aren't you up here talking to me? Did we screw up on what we were saying? Was we right? We wasn't right?
No, you're right, you're perfect.
That's why he's quiet.
What are you running for? What do you say, 480? What are you running with 480?
Everything industrial is 480.
Oh, it like.
Everything's
factory?
industrial,
Yeah.
either 277, 480, or 208.
Yeah, I don't play with that stuff.
Spent too many years playing with that stuff. But yeah, like you're talking about your power outside, that comes in at 12.5. And they can push 12,000 volts that much further. And on that little wire, plus that little wire is open air.
Yeah.
It just makes it
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Yeah,
just I commented, and Jamie's like, just keep your mouth shut.
He said there's
Because
other
it adds
levels,
more
like if it's
layers
underground,
into.
if it's enclosed, if it's open air, and all the different issues.
Oh,
but
yeah, and
that's a whole nother
see,
conversation.
that gets deep in the weeds
Whole
for me,
nother-
and it's
yeah.
just like,
That's what I told him. I said, that's a whole other class.
oh, yeah, and the thing is, when you're putting in your utilities for your house, because we came overhead to that pole and then went underground from the pole to the house, there's certain depths that you have to bury. If you've got high voltage coming in, it's a lot deeper than if you just got 240 running into the house. So, some of that stuff, and then if you can't get it, you got to encase it in concrete. We had a job where we were putting in conduit and everything, and we're like, we hit freaking shelf rock on there. And the inspector was like, dig it all the way down to the rock. And I think we had to be down at like 4 feet or something. We got to like 2.5 feet and it was ledge rock. He said, dig it and pour it full of concrete.
2 feet of concrete, yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So we dug it, laid the conduit in, backed the truck up there, and I was like, this is gonna be.
Yep.
So we poured like a foot of concrete on top of it, just where Joe Blow doesn't come in with his backhoe and start
Dig it up.
digging. He's
Yeah.
gonna hit something and be like, oh, what have we found here? Well,
Yeah.
Chaz, tell us some more good stuff. Come on.
Step up.
Bubby, I'm ready for you. Huh?
I think you covered everything.
Sorry, guys. Questions, Kristen, you still lost?
I'm not sure. I think straight.
Are you still got the light bulb going? Or,
You so lost, you didn't recognize you lost.
I stay that way. It's my scapegoat.
That's where I'm moving, and you know what, it's okay.
What's a mini split? Wattage in a mini split?
It's 20 amps. 20 amps at 240 volts. Is what a mini split pulls. So it actually pulls down around 16 amps. The what I'm looking at, which is
Yeah, we was
38,
talking about that.
3,500, 3,500 BTUs.
Okay,
A lot more efficient.
Oh, very efficient. They're awesome.
You can have air conditioning on a solar.
Yes.
Oh,
I
yes.
told you you could have air conditioning on a solar.
No, I think you said do without the air conditioning, get a fan.
Well, you could definitely
For the money your cheap ass wants to spend, yes, get you a fan.
You should just tell her open the window.
I didn't see you pulling your checkbook out and being like, I want the mini split, just go ahead and get it.
Yeah, I don't know what a mini split is, but we're about to get real familiar.
We ran an air conditioner on ours.
It's not a milkshake.
So what's a mini split?
A mini split looks like you see them in server rooms, you see them in offices. It's a little fan that sits up on the wall.
Right.
You just wait to describe it. Outside, it looks like it has a suitcase with a fan in it, the condenser. That's a mini split. Instead of a
It's
big
a-
condenser like that thing and an FAU, of course, there
It's a small
It's the
HVAC
heat pump
system.
system.
It reminds me of the one in
Yeah.
it.
It reminds me something like
Hotel,
Yeah.
They're not very big though.
Right.
That's my best summary.
Yeah.
very efficient. They
Yeah.
cool, they heat, everything.
Jazz, since you know the specs on the mini split, how big a battery bank would you need to run that mini split?
Depends how long you're gonna run it. Are you gonna run it for 6-8 hours during the day? Or are you gonna run it 24 hours?
24 hours.
Let's go with
Cause
24.
it's,
That's a lot of math.
cause it's summertime.
I don't know. Math is not my thing.
Well, just tell me numbers and I'll plug it into the calculator.
It draws 18 amps,
You're drawing 8.
approximately 18 amps at 240 volts.
When I was messing with that, I think I come up with about 10 batteries.
And that,
100 amp hour batteries,
wow.
so then you're looking at
And I
1,000.
think that I.
But then you have to be able to, you have to be able to put that power back in.
Right.
Whether you're using solar for 8 hours during winter time
Right.
and then run
You have
wind
to
at
compens-
night,
Yes,
run-
you have to compensate, the sun has to keep it going
yeah.
during the day as the batteries is charging.
There's a lot of
It wasn't,
calculations.
it wasn't real expensive-ish
But you're big.
compared to if you had a huge solar array that everything else was drawing off. Cause you have to put that, cause I've got that small fridge and it's on its own bank. It runs off 2 banks and 150 watts.
That's kind of what my goal is for the house, grid down. It's hot in the summertime, so a small, efficient air conditioner. So I can close that room off and have an air conditioned room, so you could sleep at night.
Right, makes it comfortable enough.
Right. And a small refrigerator and a light.
Now, you gotta go too with, what size was you looking at? They make all different sizes of these mini splits, so you can actually go with a smaller one that would cool a room, heat a room a little bit bigger than that room without a problem, and maybe just run it off 2 batteries, depending on what it pulls.
You can get a little like 120 window shaker and stick it in there too. He just brought a mini split, so that's why that. But like right now, we're cooling and we're using 120 volts. And we're just using a little window unit for right now, because I can't afford the mini split.
Right.
Right now,
But
we've got
that's
one
using air
too.
conditioner.
Yeah, we got a window
And
here.
it runs, okay, does it run 24?
Huh?
Does it run all day, all night? And your batteries keep
If
up?
it's real hot, it does run all night.
Yeah, what you might think about too, cause I've actually got a wine cooler
Well, they can pick up gas volume.
plug,
Okay.
and you can set the temperatures, and you can plug your window unit into that. And when the temperature hits a certain degree, it'll kick the AC on. So don't run all the time, cause I've actually got that in my house.
Now, what is it?
It's a wine cooler and humidifier. It has 2 plugs for a cooler and for a humidifier for like a little wine room. And it controls the temperature in there and the humidity.
Ours has an auto thing on the air conditioner, and like, when we left today, I had it set at 77 on auto, and then auto on the fan. So it'll kick on and off all day to try to keep it around 77. Now, if we take it off auto and put it on like dry or cool, and we hit it on 76, the house could get down to 68, because it's just gonna run and run and run and run.
Right,
But if I turn it back to auto, it goes on and off as it needs the whole time.
You know, see mine, does yours shut completely off? It still runs though, right? It just quits pulling.
I mean, the lights are on it and stuff.
Right, yeah, this actually turns it off. And then when that meter hits that specific temperature, it actually powers back up the AC and it kicks back on.
Right.
So it actually shuts it off.
We wouldn't have the AC on today, because we thought it was gonna rain all, we didn't know what it was gonna do. We usually let the windows open and it starts raining, you don't get it raining away house.
Kentucky weather.
Yeah.
And that's the goal right there, is to be able to, if need be in one room with air conditioner and a light, and to be able to charge small devices type thing, and still maintain.
I think that meter, I'd have to ask Becky, I think it was like $40 or something. And I was like, that's more than perfect, because it's shutting my air conditioner completely off, it's actually saving me money.
I might have to maybe send you a link to that or somewhere when you go. I thought you were talking about a big old fine cooler you're sitting in there, the one for your wine.
No, it's,
That's what I was like.
That's what it's made for,
Okay.
but I was like, well, this will work and turn my air conditioner off, and save me power.
You wanna go over some of those components? One idea right there, I'll be back in a second.
Right there.
Well,
Go ahead. Now, you probably, you should have this, it's a breaker, because do you have a breaker
On the inside of the house or outside?
for your solar system?
My panels?
Yeah.
I guess I got it's a 6-string combiner box, and it does have each breaker for each panel set.
They do make them, I don't use them because I don't go high enough with my voltage. But once you start getting into a bunch of panels, I do recommend, I do use one, I'll take that back, but I use it to shut my panels off when I'm going to be doing something to them.
I do it
A
too.
AC fuse panel won't work on DC current. It don't hit the waveform, it's triple.
I also got one of the ones, I hooked one to my batteries from my inverter, so I can shut the batteries off and get
Right,
power on that too. Lock that
battery,
on.
it's a battery shut off.
Yeah.
You do want these, the reason that you do want some kind of way to shut it off so that you're not having to unscrew your wires every time that you have to do something. It's just a standard, marine battery shut off. Just push them in and close them, I don't know if any of y'all wanna look at them, if you've seen them or whatever. When you're hooking up your panels, or unhooking panels, or your battery, or your box, you need to hook your battery up first to your charge controller before your solar panels, because you can fry your charge controller, and do the reverse when you take it off. Unplug the solar, then unhook the battery, because you will fry it.
I feel like a breaker.
I don't know if y'all seen the little charge controller that's out there, but I know a couple of y'all looked at it. This one, that's a pulse width modulator. It's more of a trickle. It'll keep your voltage up, and it charges through voltage. This one's an MPPT, and what it does, it's max power point. When your voltage hits a certain spot and your batteries hits a certain level, this starts converting your voltage into amps to charge your batteries and get them back up faster. And it also counts the kilowatts that your panels are charging. Those smaller ones don't. I do like these a lot. It does a lot more monitoring that you can watch on your panels. This one is a hybrid, and at the bottom you got the solar panels, and at the top it's for a turbine. The turbine is MPPT, and the bottom is pulse width, which just charges. This shoots the shit through your batteries. This one just floats it out. I've not used the turbines, I haven't built mine yet. That's another class, I guess.
That's what I want like to have those too.
Right. Y'all have any questions about that stuff?
on the wind turbine with that one there, you'd have one running through your battery,
Yes.
and then nighttime comes and it's a breezy evening type thing.
Yeah, if you look
So
at
your turbines would be connected to the top there.
Right,
Which
you-
would help push it.
turbines are AC, because they run off of an AC motor.
Okay.
This converts the AC into, and you have the wind out to the battery, so they're both charging at the same time.
What I like to figure out is, I need to figure out how I can hook one of those to my inverter that I got now to, or if I can, you know what I'm saying?
I don't know if you can, because you're running the binder and all that for
The company makes those too.
Did you look at those pictures?
I didn't get a chance to.
I don't know if there's a turbine on there, I didn't print that one, I dropped the ball on you guys. Cause it shows where you can add the turbines into it, but I must have missed that.
From my outside, and see, and that's what I'm looking at, both solar panels during the day, and it seems to be, especially in the winter time, we have, what, 180 days of not very sunny days here in Kentucky.
But it's usually when you got some kind of wind
But
going.
there's usually a wind blowing.
Winter time, it's kind of windy, so that's why I wanted to do, have both systems to keep my batteries charged up.
Yeah, you have to use the hybrids for the bulb, unless you just go straight wind.
Right.
But then you're buying an extra component for your solar, where as a hybrid, you got both. I actually got a couple of those.
I guess from that, I'll have to hook both of those to the batteries probably too,
You,
kind of switch or something.
I'll check, I'll look around, see what I can find out.
Do you have to manually, or can you do it, you said a switch, and yeah, it's like, you switch from solar, and at nighttime you switch it over to,
Or if there's something out there that actually kicks it
to
itself.
do
when it's
both
running.
of them, yeah, so you don't
Yeah.
have to
Right.
remember to
Right.
turn that switch.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find something, message you about it.
Again, I'm trying to
Also-
do it as simple as I can.
You got if you're hooked to the grid and you've got the solar, you gotta make sure you have the set off or something keeps from.
Yeah, there's actually a
Yeah.
on-grid and off-grid diagram there that shows what, it has all the switches, with the grid tied, inverters and all that.
Yeah, I cheated on mine.
Huh?
I cheated on mine.
It's okay.
I won't ever, you won't ever backfeed mine. If I had power grid, way I had it.
Right.
Now, is it
You're not
possible,
supposed to cheat.
okay, we're on the grid right now, and we have a generator that can, operate the house. I just plug it into, the generator into that socket, make sure that we're off, turn the power off,
Right.
Yeah.
and then start the generator, and then we have power. Is there a way that I could just plug, let's say, an outdoor solar and wind array into that socket without having, because everything's already wired for a generator to operate, let's say, the house.
Well, like the hybrid inverter I got,
Mm-hmm.
it does it all. You can run the batteries to your inverter, then your inverter goes to your breaker box, right? And then it has panels go up, and it's supposed to switch off itself because it don't go to the breaker box or something like that. Cause it has a setting on there, it's for utility and solar, where it changes back and forth. You might have some kind of breaker still, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
you still have to run a breaker, but there is the off-grid and the grid features there, and
Yeah.
it's because the inverter that you have to buy, it's a specific
Yeah.
inverter. It's not like this.
Yeah, mine's a hybrid inverter.
Yeah, it's not like that. Yeah, the hybrid,
It's all in one.
on-grid, off-grid.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a hybrid for solar and wind.
Now,
People standing over there.
people talk about the
I'm
solar
sorry.
generators and stuff. All that is basically is a battery bank, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
An
Yeah, I was
expensive battery
a
bank.
very
Right.
expensive one. Which he had touched some on the batteries. Did I show y'all the lithium batteries?
I would not do grid with it.
No. Lithium batteries is just a battery pack, like you was just saying. It's just a bunch of these wired together, they're dry. One of these goes in your pack, your battery's dead, unless you can actually break the box apart and know how to repair it. I don't wanna do it, that's why I didn't do it. I'd save a bunch of batteries, cause I was gonna build a
How could you tell
firewall.
which one was bad?
You have to go individually and test it. That's with a lithium battery when it dies. Now, you get into the lead base, which I said to a few of y'all, you can pop the caps, pour out the old fluid, clean it out, add new distilled water,
Desulfified or something?
Desulfified.
Yeah.
and you got a new battery. That's all repurposed batteries are, and it's been dumped out.
So my big gripe with the solar generator thing is, it's not a generator.
Right.
Per se, a generator.
No, it's a battery bank.
Yeah, it's essentially a glorified, it's a lithium, most of them are lithium batteries, aren't they, that are in there? So you got a battery in there, and somebody has done all the little wiring to put your plugs and your little AC adapter and all that crap, and put it in a nice little box. You can take 2 or 3 of those lead acid batteries, put it in there, wire it yourself, put it in one of those, you've seen the Milwaukee pack outs, and the rigid pack out deals that are on wheels? Dude, go buy the rigid, you can buy a 3-box rigid, I bought mine for $100 when they're on sale. You can pack 3 batteries in one of those, have 300 amp hours in there, and then you can buy like from E-Trailer. E-Trailer online sells all the stuff, like your, little, whatever to charge your phone, that you plug your phone
USB,
into.
so yeah, you get on Amazon too,
Yeah, you can buy all that stuff and then just go in there and wire it, and you take a hole saw bit, drill a hole in there, put your little plug, and then run your wire and do all that kind of crap. I mean, you can do it for, what, half of
Oh, it is half.
Yeah, I'd say more than half.
I mean, all it really is just a couple batteries with an inverter and a battery monitoring
Right.
system, because you gotta have the monitoring for the lithium.
Right.
Now, if you was to do it with wet cells, you don't even need, you just need an inverter and a couple batteries.
And then a lot of people don't understand is you got to buy the solar panels to recharge that thing. It's great. They would be awesome if a guy wanted to just tailgate and grid's up and a guy wants to tailgate. Keep it plugged in at your house. Hey, we're going to the Titans game. We're going to tailgate. We're throwing our jackery in the bed of the truck to run our whatever, our TV and our radio.
Oh,
And then when you get home, you plug it back in.
you can get these cigarette lighter, because I went off track with you when you said USB, because the USBs just plug into these and you can run them right through your battery. They're like $5 for a whole bag of them.
And you can get them Amazon, E-Trailer, all that. But the people don't understand.
You have to recharge it.
Yeah, that's
They're
the
telling
thing.
people, sorry, it's a big, never mind. They're telling people that you could run this whole house off this little battery bank. You could run
Yeah,
all your
man.
refrigerators, your TV, everything off this. It'll run forever. But it won't. It won't run forever.
There's some guys that have done some tests
And they're
on it.
thinking
And they're thinking
generator.
generator, exactly. No, like
Right.
you said, it's great. You guys go camping, whatever you take, you're only using a few things here and there. You set the panels out, you're great, you're good to go. But not meant to run your whole house.
Right.
And that's what they're trying to sell.
And there's some
And they're
guys that have
selling
done
the hell out of
tests.
it.
They are, and they're expensive.
Yeah.
But they're doing the same thing with the solar arrays. They're selling people $60,000 on grid.
Yeah, exactly. Just to pump it back.
Yeah.
And that's why I despise when somebody says a solar generator, because they're selling you a bunch of crap, but I'm a DIY guy. I wanna build the thing and know how it works.
Yeah.
And the bad thing about the solar generators is, if something tears up in that box, a lot of times there's no way to fix it.
Right.
So, I mean, you're kinda screwed. If you build your own in one of those pack outs or something, and your inverter fries, you can pop the top, pull the junk inverter out, stick another one in, and then you save all that money.
Right.
That, and you know how the thing works. So
What I feel that was really cool is, we were going camping, doing some things like that to charge our cell phones. So I took an ammo box. I know you guys have probably seen this online too.
Yep.
The ammo box with the 8 amp battery, 8 amp hour battery inside, and I put USB ports and everything on the top and hit the button and go. I use it too for one of our cameras out back. And it worked great. It didn't cost anything really.
I will, as much as I dog lithiums, I am gonna buy a lithium battery for my Manpack radio, just because I can run it down so far
And it's
and do
light.
it, yeah, and do it that way, because the radio I'm gonna use is drawing so much current
Mhm.
that if I tried it with a small little bitty like motorcycle battery, that, man, you're gonna get to transmit maybe 10 minutes and you're toast. But with the lithium battery, you're gonna get a lot more amperage out of it, and you're gonna get to go longer than
What's up there,
something.
you're running? What's up there, you gonna try to get?
I don't know yet. That bigger, that one radio will run, it's 100 watts if I've got it turned all the way up, but you can turn it all the way down to 5 watts.
Well, I've got an extra,
Don't say another day you don't build your battery.
Where's it? Are they some firecrackers?
that's what they
Not
look
yet,
like.
but they will be.
You could probably get
Yeah,
them
they
outside
got
from
one,
that.
yeah.
I've got a
If you take,
I've seen those guys.
PVC, put it in little rings, and time you go, that's how you do it, and then just start soldering it. I've made it solder and maybe you can get something to do.
I don't have enough for it already. But, where you at? Go ahead.
Mike, what were you saying?
I said, I've got an extra 100-hour, 12-volt and 100-hour amplifier if you wanna try it out. Just gotta charge it up first.
How big is it?
Like a
Car battery.
car battery, it weighs like 20 pounds.
No, I'm talking about a man pack. that you can
Oh,
throw
I
in
see
a
what you're saying,
backpack.
okay, now, never
Yeah.
mind.
No, I'm
I'm
talking
not-
about like you can throw in like
I see what you're saying.
In the rucksack.
Okay.
well, not even a
Something-
rucksack, like an
Something
assault
that
pack.
size right
Yeah.
there, I just gave you the card to do it.
Yeah.
You can do it.
And that's what if you could get a 20 or a 20 to a 30 amp hour battery, that, you know, essentially the size of like a motorcycle battery, somewhere right around there, it'll do that. Cause I mean,
I don't know what you got here, man, you can use your own law, use your three.
Yeah, if you put them in, like you said there, Bob,
You could
if
actually
solder
figure out
the
how many
end,
amp hours you can
and
get out
put
of
them
the
into the
battery.
PVC pipe. Yeah, that would definitely work.
yeah, but I want something that you're gonna throw in like a little one-day assault pack kind of thing,
Right.
and try to keep it as light. Cause with that radio, you can turn it down all the way to 5 watts, and then you're really not pulling a lot of amperage. And it depends on how far. I mean, if you really wanna get out, crank it up to 100 watts, and you're doing 100 watts right then. But you'll probably just crank it down.
So is everybody good and lost?
Now you got me on lock.
I got a question. I've seen this on YouTube, this guy, when his batteries are down, he can charge his battery with his generator faster than like a solar would.
Yes.
How can we do that with ours?
You're throwing a lot more water.
Yeah.
Mike, you've got an all-in-one
Yeah.
that you can tie to grid
Yeah.
power.
I don't think my generator's trying to, I tried to hook it up, it won't kick it over.
Really? How big a generator is it?
3,500 watts.
That's probably,
They're kind of small.
Yeah.
I've got, in the house, and it's not hooked up, but I've got, Mike has got one too, it's an all-in-one. Essentially, it's got your charge controller in it, it's got your inverter and a charger in there for it to charge everything. What you can do, you can hook it up to grid power, and you can go in there and select, generator, grid power, or solar power.
That's what I was trying to say a while ago.
Yeah, yours is, they're probably darn near the same on the inside, just got a different sticker on it. But the cool thing about it is, what are you running, 36 volts or 48? 48. Mine's a 24 volts is what I wanna run on mine. But it's cool because you got everything in one box, and you don't have to say, oh, I've got this inverter and then this charge controller, work with it, or it won't work. It's almost like plug and play on that, so you don't have to worry about all your components working together. But I can take mine, wire it all in, have my solar panel sitting out here. If the solar's not doing the job charging the battery bank, I can plug it in to the grid power. So, and it'll shut the solar charging off, so I'm getting all my batteries charged from the grid. And then, once the batteries are topped off, it'll kick off and not charge anymore. Or it's got the generator settings where I can pull a generator out, plug it into the generator, and fire the generator up and let the generator charge the battery.
Well,
Sounds like y'all need a
too, I was
bigger-
looking at it too. I wonder if it could be my generator, just a regular generator, not one of those inverter generators, you know, the actual generator has the inverter in it.
It shouldn't matter.
Well, it said something about some kind of a current or something going through there not being
The
as,
sine wave.
yeah.
Right.
So that could be part of it too.
It could be that it's not, are you having, the solar's hooked up when it does it? It's not overriding the,
No,
power coming in?
no, you can change,
Oh, you can
I've
change manually.
tried changing everything I could figure I could. Unless I might be doing, like I said, might be doing something wrong on it. But, what I've been doing, like how I cheated, how he somehow has his generator, they got that box plugged in. Well, I went in there, I took one of those generator cords and cut it in two, so I can take, the one goes out to power the house, I hooked the generator up from that, take that cord and hook it to there, so it's running there. So then I can take my once when I get going, I should be able to take my generator and hook it to the other cord that comes out, that should run in there. But right now, I'm just going to plug it back and forth, so I'm not changing that.
That's what I was shooting at. It's not hardwired.